Well, happy hump day to you here. Chris Hare, the crypto cowboy, bringing you another nightly update. I am a world champion, multiple time team roper, and I'm taking those winning strategies and those winning ways from the arena to the trade charts to create champion TA crypto traders. That's you guys. I'm just a middle class guy, just looking for a little freedom. And if I can figure this out, then you can figure this out. But without further ado, let's get into the charts tonight. We'll start off up top. We'll go to the crypto fear and greed index, and we'll come back to the liquidation heat map. So this is a map that measures market sentiment. It tells us if people are scared, if people are greedy. It tells us what's going on. Well, currently we're at a 32. I think we were at 34 last night, and so we came down a little bit naturally because we've got this pullback going on, and we'll get into that. I'm not real excited about what I see. It looked a little bullish last night, but tonight doesn't look very good, guys. But we'll get into a altcoin season index. You can see we've pulled back from about 30 yesterday, and last week we were at a 51. So we've came way back. Bitcoin's kind of taken charge again, and wherever Bitcoin goes, the altcoins are go. Until we get over into these blues and up higher, like last month, altcoin season was at a 71 and alts really ran. Until we get back up there, guys, I hate to tell you, but these altcoins are probably going to bleed out pretty bad. But we'll go over Bitcoin and Ethereum both. We'll get to the bottom of exactly what's going on. All right, we pulled up a Bitcoin liquidation heat map on the 24 hours so we can get an idea of the closer move. Up to the top side, up around 117,000, we've got $500 million in liquidations. And you can see these real bright pockets of liquidity. This is what the market makers chase. The market makers are the guys that, let's say, they just basically make the charts. They draw the charts. They send this where they want to. And the way they do that is they go through here and do these liquidity hunts. They'll come up, grab this, go down, grab this, and then a bunch of people pile in short, and there will be a lot more liquidations that come up. So that's kind of what we use this for. It's just confirmation in the moves that we've got on our charts. And it gives us a pretty good idea of what they're thinking. But speaking of charts, let's move on to the Bitcoin chart tonight. We'll start off with the daily. I don't think there's any need to go to the weekly right now. Let's get through these moves before we worry about that. But like I said, it's looking pretty dismal tonight. So we've been in a corrective pattern ever since about July 25th, and we've just gone up and down and broke all-time highs 3 different times, which is kind of crazy for a corrective pattern, but sometimes it happens. And now once we hit that 125, this price action is like a spring, guys. You got to compress it down, and finally you get to a point that the spring just can't handle anymore, and then it's going to blow off to the upside. So that's kind of what happened when we hit 125,000. And to go back to the liquidation heat map, you get what you call short squeezes, where everybody's piled in short after this all-time high. They piled in short. Market makers said, no way, sir. And so they just push this thing back up. And when it hits those big liquidation pockets, it just rockets off. And that's what happened. And it got it all the way to $126,000 or $27,000, but impressive nonetheless. So since then, people are taking profits. People are selling off. All-time high, you should take profit. I pulled a little out of my spot bags because who knows if we get back there again. And what's happening right now is going to scare a lot of people, especially after Friday. That's why price action really isn't setting up. It kind of looked like they want to put into some structure, but it's kind of gone away now because you can see this is a 50 smooth moving average. So it takes 50 of these candles, puts them on a chart in a fluid line, and this ends up working as a solid support and resistance. And what you can see is we've came and tested it before, and we've lost it. We bounce out of it, we lost it, and then we rocketed to the top. Well, what happened here is when we came up to retest it again, we went over, but we lost it, and now we've done a retest, and it looks like we're headed back down again. So what does that tell you? Okay, well, let's talk about it. The golden zone is a 618 to 786. That's a Fibonacci scale that I use for my TA. I put all these lines and everything on a chart. This is a blank chart, and then I add all of these lines, so it gives me a better idea of where price action is going. But we're not going to get into Fibonacci's tonight. That's another video for another time. I'm going to keep this pretty simple so you newer guys can understand, because that's what we're here to do. But anyway, when they retrace, you take that and you go from swing high to swing low, and it gives you these percentages. Your first area of interest is the golden zone, and that's going to come between the 618, 786. That number is between 108 and 103,000. I think that's going to be our first bounce. You can see I've got something written here called descending channel target, and that's going to break down into the 4-hour, but the line comes out right at about 105,000. So I really feel like that's probably where we're going to go. Then I have questions. I have a lot of questions, and I'm becoming a little concerned. If we lose 103,000, then we're going to have to look for lower targets. You can see our 200 smooth moving average that takes 200 of these candles and puts a fluid line on the chart is sitting right at about 98,000. So do we bounce at 98,000? If we don't, it's going to get ugly, guys. There's a trend line down here that I've drawn that would show up on a weekly chart, but the charts really respect these lines. They like to go to them. They like to bounce back. And if you draw kind of an angle across here, it puts us right in this extension area, somewhere around $85,000. How long it takes to get there, I'm not sure. I really don't want to call that target out yet. That's a conversation I'm not ready to have. Let's get through the golden zone and get to the 200 moving average before we start looking at worst case scenario. But that gives you an idea on the daily, kind of where we're going, what I'm thinking. And once we get into this 4-hour chart, it's going to break this move down even more to give us some shorter term targets and why I see what I see. So you can see there's a head and shoulders pattern formed. And so head and shoulders patterns are significant to you either get a bounce off of them or you get a rejection. And there's two areas of confluence here that I found while I was looking at this, actually three. We came up and tested the golden zone to the upside, the 618786 at 115,000 to 112,000. You can see we clearly rejected right here at 115,000. This is the 50 moving average for the 4-hour chart. We rejected off of it and we started our trek down. We also lost that 200 moving average. So that's two solid lines of resistance right here on the chart. And the bears said, no way, this is a good place for us to jump in. And that's what they did. And they've just pushed the price down ever since. So what happens now? Well, if you fall out of this descending channel, I went ahead and took this short early. Usually I take them after they've crossed this green line. But we fell out of this descending channel, so I went ahead and took the short because the retest has been successful. And what happens is if you take this line that I've got drawn here, bring it back up to the chart, you go from the top of the move to the bottom of the move, and you take this and you drag it back over to your breakout point. That gives you your target. Usually they do one of two things. They go about halfway down this line, which is probably right. It's right here in target one, about $108,000. They usually bounce there, but usually they go on down to the bottom target, which is at 105,000. The reason I think that we're going to go that far is because this wick came all the way down to 101,000, and generally market makers like to fill about 70% of that out, and that puts us right in that target. So I think that's solid TA for Bitcoin for the next 2 or 3 days. But I post all these charts in the crypto school. You'll find that link in my description. And I post all my charts, all my TA. I posted a couple of signals tonight on Bitcoin and Solana. I took shorts on them. So you may want to, so like I said, that link's in my description. Go check it out. Tons of good information, tons of coaches. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. Let's go on back up to the liquidation heat map. We'll pull it up on Ethereum. Let me refresh it just to see where we are now. One second. Been a good day in Texas, about 90 degrees today. Shoot some horses. Took care of the horses, our horses tonight. Bedded the cows up. We didn't ride or anything. We just gave the kids a night off. There we go. It's finally loading. All right, here we are. You can see we're in a huge pocket of liquidity right now. I was kind of surprised they didn't come and take more of this, but we've had a rejection here lately. So I don't know what's going on here. We've got probably $800 million of liquidations to the long side. And there's about 350 million to the bottom. So there's an imbalance here that wants to go up. I would watch this close. The charts are going to tell us a little more. Technically, you could come up, they probably want to come up to $4,100. I think that's probably a good point for a rejection. So it's not a big move. It looks a big move because I believe this is like a 5 or a 30-second chart. So these candles, there's just a lot more of these candles. So that's the way reason it looks the way it does. All right, let's go back to the charts. Let's go over to Ethereum. Let's figure out what's going on there. I always like to start with a daily chart because it gives me a better idea of the macro picture, and you can't trade the lower time frames without understanding what the bigger move is. So here we go. Ethereum on the daily. Let's take a look. I'm going to set this chart up so it makes a little more sense. There's a lot of lines here that I've drawn, but they're relevant to what we're talking about. So it kind of ignores some of it, and we'll get through it. So the 50 smooth moving average is right here. Currently, we're above it, but when we get down in the 4-hour chart, we'll talk about why this move is probably exhausted. I leave this red line. I put a red line on my chart every day, and I update it several times a day because I always like to see on other charts where this 50 moving average is on the daily, because if you're above it, you're bullish. If you're below it, you're bearish. So it gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on. But we've been in this downtrend. We had that horrible mishap on Friday. I'm going to kind of expand this so we can see it a little better. And like I said, like we talked about on Bitcoin, they like to fill out 70% of those wicks. You can see we're getting a clear rejection off of one of the Fibonacci levels. That's why I think the move is kind of done here. And then we're going to head down to this golden zone. We've tested it once. We came out of it, tried to reclaim some support here. I really wanted to see us get to about $4,500, and that didn't happen. It's just not strong enough right now. People are scared and not buying. So the market makers are in control, and they can push this down. They can kind of do what they want to because there's low volume. But it's going to come down. It's going to retest this area between $3,900, $3,700. And then I don't know if we stay there or not. If we don't, our next stop is that 50 smooth moving average like we've talked before. It falls around $3,100. There is a possibility that you get up here to about 34, 37. And there's rules that say it could bounce there, or it could bounce here at $3,500. So there's a big range here, and that's why this stuff is so shaded. We're just going to have to play this move day by day. If Bitcoin is going down, Ethereum's going to follow. So that's kind of pretty good suit of what's going on. Bitcoin looks a little worse, so I'm kind of got my eyes on the more bottom targets. Also, we've got a daily golden zone at $30,000. Worst case scenario, somewhere around $2,500. But just like Bitcoin, that's not a conversation I'm prepared to have yet. We've got a lot of support on the way down, so we'll play this day to day. All right, we're going to go to the 4-hour chart. We're going to break this down a little better. We're going to get a better understanding of where we are in the short-term move. And here we go. Looks like we rejected the 50 moving average back on Monday, the 25th. You can see the horrible crash we had. And we've still got a big wick down here. So that's why I've got a target drawn here right around $3,450. You can see we're kind of retesting this orange line. It's a Fibonacci scale. It's a 382 for you more technical traders, but it's around $4,000. And like I said, we're kind of rejecting off of it now. You can see the wick. Tried to get up above it. It failed. Daily 50s here. You know, you can see why I use it, because when you get on the 4-hour chart, it still respects that line, and it's a good confluence to have. But we fell out of, this is an ascending channel. So rather than a head and shoulders pattern on Ethereum, there's an ascending channel here. And what happens is you work in between these, like you say, and finally you fall out the bottom of them. And when you do, you take that move and you can measure it from the high to the low. I didn't take the wick into consideration here. Yes, I did. The wick is down below here, down about $3,246. But you can see I've got a target here. That's without the wick, and that's about 70 to 80% of that wick. So I want to see if we bounce there. We'll have to have some confluence before I back out of these shorts. But opportunity's there, and it may be something that happens. So that's where we are for tonight. I don't really think there's any upside coming right now. I could be wrong. Market makers do what they want. So that's where we are. I would just keep your stop losses tied on your short, kind of trail them down as those 50 smoothing averages come down, and that keeps you out of trouble. And always, 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 when you see profit, take it. If you're worried, take more profit. If you're really worried, close the trade. Who cares if it takes off? That's greed, guys. And profit is profit is profit. Think about your spot bags. If you can sit on your spot bags 3 or 4 years and be fine with wherever that price action moves, why would you worry about your leverage traders? High leverage is there for you to lose. If you thought, if the exchanges and the market makers thought you were actually making money, there wouldn't be 40, 50, 100x leverage there. they probably wouldn't be any leverage at all. They're in the business to make money just like we are, and we just have to outsmart them. So I'm going to take this multiple time team roping championships that I've earned and I've worked hard for, and I understand how to compete. And I'm going to take it to you guys. We're going to figure this out. I'm going to pull it out of the arena. The same strategies I use, the same discipline I use in the arena, we're going to incorporate into crypto and figure this all out. But I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, smash the subscribe, hit that bell notification. You'll get updates as soon as we upload a video. And don't forget, our other social media links are down there as well, along with the sweet deal on BitUnix to get you started in this trading field. And you can find us at the Crypto School. That link is also there. So I'm going to sign out of this thing. I've said enough already. I'm Chris Hare, the multiple-time world champion crypto cowboy. We'll see you down the road.